An epidemic of defects. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Warren Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. Got my stein of coffee, and I thought we would have a look at this article to do with investors having no one left to sue due to the rampant defects in his building and the Phoenix activity of developers and builders. Now, before we go through this article, let's jump onto Google Earth, and you can see here where I've pinned several projects that have come to my attention with varying levels of issues all over the country. I need to add some from Queensland. We've got them in Darwin, some in South Australia as well that I haven't put on here. A lot of the flammable cladding is an entirely separate issue to what I'm discussing here. We've got Verve. But in Sydney, I like to call it the triangle of fail between Sugar Cube, Zetlands, and Mascot Towers. And I argue that this is a fundamental issue with the way a lot of these buildings are procured. And here is another element that people can, phoenix and get out of their responsibilities. So an effective business model that experts say has reached epidemic levels in the New South Wales building industry is leaving investors financially broke. And I would argue it's not just New South Wales, it's the entire nation. Aidan Ellis, 75, was stunned when the developer and builder of his apartment block could walk away scot-free after his companies went into liquidation midway through a battle over defects estimated to be worth in excess of $2 million. The 6-year nightmare has forced Mr. Ellis into temporary accommodation, while his apartment is a demolition site. The business model known as phoenixing refers to behavior that becomes illegal when it is proven a company was deliberately wound up to avoid paying debts such as tax and GST. Oh, the government always gets their slice, doesn't it? They always manage to get their blood from the stone. But the 75-year-old who's built a project, you're out of luck, mate. It's disgraceful, Mr. Ellis said. Thousands of ordinary Australians are losing their life savings. The Herald has spoken to several apartment owners like Mr. Ellis, who are left with no one to sue for defects they did not cause. Most of them will not speak publicly for fear of harming their resale value. And this is the issue, guys. This is one of the issues here. People won't speak publicly for fear of harming their resale value. Understandably. I mean, but do you want to sell a dodgy thing to someone else? Do you want to pass the burden on to someone else? I know buyer beware, I understand, but it's a little dodgy, isn't it? You think about it from that perspective. We should jump here to Sugar Cube. You can see here, Zetlands. It was empty for I think a year before media jumped onto it, and no one mentioned it. No one wanted to talk about it. They wanted to settle, keep it out of the media. How many other projects are going to be similar to this? Because people don't want to risk damaging the value of their property. It's another one just to think about. But the effects are real and devastating. They speak of broken marriages, mental breakdowns, and unbearable financial strain. At the heart of their misery lies a broken business model that experts say has reached epidemic proportions in the New South Wales building industry. Developers and builders creating $2 companies to carry out apartment projects, taking the profits and then shutting them down before they can be pursued in court over any defects bills. I mean, that's horrific. The New South Wales government and newly anointed Building Commissioner David Chandler have both failed to publicly lay out plans to address the problem and did not respond to questions from the Herald, sparking accusations their response to the building defects crisis has been defective. Well, here's the thing, guys. Here is the thing. There are fundamental issues with how these buildings are procured. There are fundamental issues with how they are built. I am quite concerned with the design and construct methodology, where I've looked at that in previous videos, where, frankly, the traditional police from the industry can be employed by the person building the building. And that limits your ability to check the construction, to ensure you have a third party, an independent third party, impartial between the builder and the developer. And the certifiers may be in a difficult conflict of interest, particularly if they're employed by the builder. So the government talking about more regulation, more paperwork, more licensing, it's just going to be more safety theatre. I have very little confidence in their ability, in the ability of government to deal with it. I would argue there has to be a market response. People need to be educated to the point and realize where they can get access to information that they shouldn't be buying these buildings. They should simply refuse. The market needs to be hammered until builders start signing personal guarantees where their own houses are on the line. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. It'll change the market. People will buy them up, get them checked, and then sign personal guarantees. But that's what I'd argue for. You'll have a hard time finding it, though. Let me know if you've ever heard of a builder signing that. That all talk. It's all saying, "Oh, we're super quality," all of this stuff. But how many of them actually put their own business, their own home on the line? Lots of small home builders do. There's a lot of people that do that day by day. How many of these big boys? How many of them all talk and marketing? It comes after industry experts, lawyers, academics, unions, and the peak body representing apartment owners all demanded action at a recent parliamentary inquiry where the business model was referred to as phoenixing. The inquiry was launched following the evacuations of Sydney's Olympic Tower, Mascot and Setland apartment buildings, which rocked public confidence in multi-story buildings. It probably rocketed their concern and worry, and maybe lack of confidence in our government. It's good coffee, guys. David Christie, an engineer with more than 50 years' experience, said, "The industry is full of $2 companies doing quick and dirty developments with little oversight or control." I've noticed this as well. When we started looking at some insolvencies for some developments, or some developers looked at the insolvency notices, and you would see how many companies were there, boom, boom, boom. And I realized, wait, that's for each bloody development. They set up a completely separate company. They open a specific company for each development for the reason that if something goes wrong, they can just pull the pin and walk away. At the end of the day, it is the poor consumer that wears the full brunt of it all. Stanton Leal told the inquiry that phoenixing was the most significant factor in the cascading number of defective buildings. Associate Professor Heise Architecture for the University of New South Wales said it left fixing defects contingent on the goodwill of those developers and builders. Here's the thing. As I would say, again, this goes back to the procurement method. This goes back to the procurement method of the building. Now, there should be a separation between the legal entity that develops the building and the builder that builds the building. You'd hope. And there should be an impartial body in between. That's usually the architect. So let me jump onto my tablet and we'll draw a little diagram to explain the idea here and the issues with this. So we'll jump over here. Now, what we've got is a scenario where, let's say, in a construction project, you've got a developer and you've got a contractor, which is a builder. Now, you'd want these two to be separate entities. If they're the same one, then that gets even messier. But let's just say these are two separate legal entities. Now, they have a contract for the procurement of a building. Now, the problem is the contractor may set up a little Phoenix company here to do that, or the developer may set up a little Phoenix company here to do that. Okay, now that causes a potential problem as well, because these Phoenix companies can be destroyed under any circumstances. But that's in the procurement contract. There's no way a developer should sign up a contractor with a little Phoenix. You should do the research. You can find that information, guys. You can find that information out. When you're tendering these type of jobs, you can insist on financial information from the builder, from the developer. You know, I've requested it when I tender jobs. I wanted their years of financial records to make sure the builder is at least arguing that they're solvent. You can get reports from their accountants, guys, from their bank. You can get that. So you can find out if they're setting up a Phoenix. Now, actually, we'll jump back here. Now, between these two parties, in a traditional procurement process, you have a independent and impartial professional. Now, traditionally, that was the role of the architect. Now, often now project managers are taking that role, but I found that often there's a risk that they cannot act impartially, or some of them don't have enough experience in construction or contract law. I'm sure some of them do it really well, but some of them don't. Or some of them go into it when you get a design and construct methodology, it gets really messy. But traditionally, we'll stick with the traditional method here. You'd have the architect employed in that role. And what happens is every month for the construction of the project, the contractor submits, and it goes through the architect, a claim, which is money. Now the architect looks at that claim, reviews it, and then sends through to the developer or back to the contractor a review and says, yep, that's for what it is, or they go through it line by line and go, no, yes, no, yes. And then the developer makes that payment to the contractor every month. But a portion of that is either siphoned off and held aside, a little tiny amount, for defects, or right at the beginning of the project, and we'll just put this in another color here, the architect is holding 2 bank guarantees for 5% of the projects, depending on the project complexity. And when you reach the first stage, when it's practically complete, PC, when the project is at a point where people can move in, where there's just little things that still need to be rectified, maybe some landscaping, stuff that doesn't inhibit the ability to occupy the building, you would hand over one of these bank guarantees. You hand it back over to the builder, and they get their money back. But you still have this other bank guarantee, and that doesn't get to them until the defects period. I can't draw on this bloody thing. Ends. Now, that defects period is usually a 1-year process. It can be longer, it can be less, depending on the scale and complexity of the project. But when that ends, you hand that back to the builder. Now, if during this time you find, say you've got, a defect in your building here, okay, this window needs to be replaced, but Mr. Contractor isn't rocking up, you can slice a portion of that defects money off and hire someone else to come and rectify the work. This is Cont 2. And if they still don't come and rectify the work, and there isn't enough money in the bank guarantee, you have a legal claim against them. And this is where, if they have a Phoenix company, it can fall down. But this is where it comes back to the procurement methodology that you need to ensure that isn't happening. Now, again, it comes back to the way these buildings are procured. If you're in a design and construct approach, guys, this is all completely different. Let's say we come over here. You've got, maybe even your developer. It's a developer/builder. They're essentially the same entity, but maybe they've set up a Phoenix company just for the build. And then under them, you've got all the different design teams, guys. You've got your architect, you've got your cert, structural, everyone under here, and then as well, they've got all the contractors. So when you're buying an off the plan, you may be buying just a partially designed thing and handing over all your money, and then this will change further on you get. You can see where this relationship can be much less onerous than this one, because this is, I know it looks like a mess, but it's a much more complicated process. It's a much more rigorous process. Every time a change is made, there has to be a whole lot of paperwork, has to be a whole lot of back and forth. Now, it's not foolproof. It never is. There can still be, dodgy backhand as the architect or the impartial. I'm picking the wrong thing again. The architect or the impartial professional here could be corrupted. But then you have a recourse against them under the Architects Act as well. And they have PI insurance. There's another body you can go after. So it's all an interesting case, guys. There's a whole lot of stuff going on and a whole lot of considerations. This is why I have very little confidence in the state whenever they say they're going to come and find a solution, to be honest. So let's jump back to the article here. So former Treasury Secretary Michael Lambert, who led a landmark review into New South Wales building regulations in 2015, said it was very disappointing that phoenixing hadn't been addressed. It is quite clear that the building regulation is defective, he said. Well, I would argue, wouldn't, and I'm not a lawyer, guys, not by any imagination, wouldn't the purchasers of the units have a case against the developer, unless the developer's gone under, or the selling agent, for exposing them to extra risk by selling property from a phoenix entity, or an entity that could be potentially phoenixed? Maybe that's a big stretch. I need to be making arguments for duty of care. I'm not sure. Lawyers in the audience, if any of you are watching this, let me know. Let me know. I mean, a Herald analysis of recent Supreme Court defect cases found 5 where a developer had been liquidated. 2 where builders have been wound up, and 3 where both the developer and builder no longer exist. So here's the other issue, guys. Here's the other issue. So I'm talking about where the builder goes dodgy. But what happens? What do you do? What do you do when the developer is another one that goes dodgy? Where the developer here, and we've seen it, sets up a little phoenix for this business. $2 company. What do you do then? When all your contractual relationships is with this entity, say, 123 or 120 PTY, and not with Mega Dev Corp. Here's an idea. Here's a suggestion. Here's a suggestion that could address this situation real quick. Here's an idea. What you need to do, we need to simply get the ACCC to enforce requirements that any marketing advertisement for any of these businesses, any publications, anything needs to have the name of the actual company. 123 Proprietary Limited here needs to be on it. So say you've got a nice glossy brochure, and then you've got to have 123 PTY Ltd. And then they have to have an amount there. And you know what that amount would be? The latest, or the last reported share value for the ASIC business. So if you're seeing all these glossy brochures from a company that's probably only worth $100 on shares, would that worry you? Would that concern you? Or how many owners? Or maybe there needs to be a bit more information provided there. Maybe that's just a simple case. But do you see what I'm arguing here? That the market needs to be clearly advertised that these businesses that you're doing business with are little dodgy Phoenix companies, guys. Rather than arguing we need more government, we need this, we need that. We've already got so much of it. Maybe that should be done. Or maybe warnings should be put out. This development is being done by such and such company. Or this company under this company. That raises a concern. The public needs to be made aware of it. Maybe this process needs to be stamped out because it does not scream. It does not scream. They're not even confident in their own project. I mean, what other professions do that? Do lawyers start up a business for every single other case? Do doctors start up a separate business for every other case? Do architects start up a separate business for every case? Or for every project? So, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission prosecutes illegal phoenixing and has been open about the difficulty it has faced in proving intent, especially when the phoenixing is assisted by unscrupulous liquidators and business advisors. There you go. This shows you that another layer of information needs to be provided to the public about the risk of this. If a business or development has the potential to Phoenix, even if it's set up for that, that's a risk. I'm thinking there needs to be some, there's almost a market to assess these projects just from a risk basis, even just with the public information they put available. To further complicate the matter, the federal government has jurisdiction over corporate laws, including Phoenixing, while the state has jurisdiction over the building industry. The Morrison government introduced new laws this month to curb the practice by introducing director identification numbers. It is also creating new penalties for illegal Phoenixing. Well, here you go. More government. Do you think this will make a difference? Another number, another director identificator number. Bloody hell. I need to check if I need to get some of that rubbish. I know this has got issues for people who are trading on through businesses who are trading on exchanges or buying EFTs or these type of things or CFDs. They need to put these things in. I haven't looked at it. I've only looked at it briefly. However, Australian Small Business Ombudsman Kate Carnell said the DIN does not solve the problem of Phoenixing and could be more than a year away from implementation. Well, yeah, exactly. Government isn't going to solve this problem, guys. I can tell you that now. I've got no confidence in their ability to solve the problem. If anything, there needs to be a market push to make this information available. There are concerns the laws will do little to dismantle the type of Phoenixing that is commonplace within the industry. And while not necessarily illegal, it is wreaking havoc for buyers left with the bill. Queensland, ASIC and Victoria have intervened to protect consumers by introducing their own legislation aimed at Phoenixing. The Queensland Building and Construction Commission runs a licensing scheme that can exclude builders from the industry for life once they have been involved in multiple insolvencies. And an excluded person cannot overtly or covertly own or otherwise be calling the shots of a licensed building company, the spokesman said. I have little confidence in the Queensland Building and Construction Commission. I've reported people who have been doing illegal work and they didn't care. So my confidence in them is shot. I've spoken to mates. Yeah, I've got little confidence in them as well. The Australian Restructuring, Insolvency and Turnaround Associate Chief Executive John Winter said licensing was the only way to hold developers to account for a history of insolvency and poor building quality. In its interim report last month, the Greens and Labor... Well, here's another suggestion. Why doesn't ASIC allow the searches of companies and company directors to be readily available for free to the public? Why not? Why should I pay $15 to get all the details of a business or to search up a director? That should be all available for free. We pay enough bloody money every year to ASIC as a business that should be available on the internet. There's a suggestion. Rather than we need more government. We already have so much bloody government. Make it available for free. Maybe spend 20 grand on an advertising campaign on YouTube for people to do their own searches. People can find this information. They're not that dumb. You've got a supercomputer on your phone. You can do an ASIC search on it. You just need to learn people. You need to teach people, and people need to learn how to take advantage of this. There we go. There would be one argument I put forward. All of this information needs to be provided for free, because right now there's like a $15 paywall there. And if you want to do multiple searches, that's going to add up to a consumer. Why is that costing money? Can someone let me know? So it recommended that there be an increase to the 2% bond paid by the developer at the outset of a project to cover any defects, repairs needed down the track, subject to economic modelling on the effect of the change. In a dissenting statement on behalf of the government, Trevor Khan said such a change was likely to have a major impact on the cost of new buildings and negatively affect housing affordability. Yes, he's right there, it will. The New South Wales government reforms are focused on the registration of practitioners who carry out building work, including principal contractors, designers, architects, and engineers. That is going to have absolutely no impact on this. And, I mean, the architects in New South Wales they're registered. Are they having requirements to have PI insurance now? When the senior bureaucrats developing the reforms were quizzed in Parliament about Queensland's approach, they said they had not dealt with phoenixing within the ambit of this bill, but could look into that. Just watching these cash ban videos about these bureaucrats, it's funny. They pointed out that there is a lot of work being done at both Commonwealth and state levels on the issue of phoenixing more generally. Better regulation. That just seems like a newspeak term. It really does. Better regulation, Minister. Should be less regulation, Minister. Kevin Anderson and Mr. Chandler did not respond to requests for comment. The Urban Development Institute of Australia, New South Wales, said it took a hardline approach on illegal phoenixing, but defended the use of individual companies for individual building projects. Chief Executive Steve Mann said they gave investors confidence that capital would be spent only on a specific project and other projects would not affect the security of the finance. None of this implies that Ecover Icon are involved in phoenixing activity. Well, there you go. There you go. I mean, that's an interesting point there that they raise. You'd want to keep all the money in separate baskets for investors. And I understand that. I've had friends who've invested in projects. You don't want it moving around. That's a risk. That's a risk to these construction jobs. When you're assessing a payment, you're worried. You need to check. That's why you check the financials of the builder. You don't want it to head to another project. That's always a risk of what can happen. So what do you think, guys? What do you think? Do you think these solutions that government are proposing are going to address it? What about my first suggestion? Just simply advertising. If your brand spanking new development is with a Phoenix company, would that affect your decision to purchase? What about personal guarantees from directors of those companies? Do you think we'll ever see those materialize? Or maybe, just maybe, ASIC could start giving away their search information for free to allow consumers to do their own digging in maybe at least the 1 or 2 years before the government implements all this other stuff. What do you reckon, guys? Let me know your opinions in the comments. What are your solutions? Let's see where this all goes. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to help us produce more content, I have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have affiliate links with eBay and Amazon. If you make a purchase there, we receive a small commission. If you don't, or if you don't sign up through a social media rep, it just all goes to Amazon. It's a great way, it doesn't cost you a cent, to support your favorite content creators. We also have an affiliate relationship with Independent Reserve. So if you're buying or trading crypto and you use their platform through our link, we receive a share of the trading fees you pay. Costs you nothing extra. And again, it's a great way for you to support your favorite content creators. Also did an interview with the CEO, so check it out. He's a nice bloke. And finally, guys, we have our very own merch at the Heise Says blog. Pocket squares, handmade in this very house on the other side, our very own Queensland sweatshops. Perfect for Christmas or New Year's Eve. Gotta push him. Gotta push him. You asked for merch, and I got you merch. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye for now.